I've always liked Poseidon better. Maybe because he's the second most powerful god. So I thought that'd be a little more interesting. You have to try harder, you know, when your dad's Poseidon. But yeah, Zeus is pretty cool too.
Hi, I won't dominate the mic too much because I know there's lots of people waiting, but just to reassure you, in my little part of the world, as a teacher, I am doing my best to keep the tradition of folklore alive. I tell lots of stories, and you know, I let the children tell their stories, and I also have to commend Comic-Con because I think that's part of why we're here, because we love stories and we love to tell each other stories. So, okay, so here's my question. How much creative input did you have as an author in developing the sets for the Percy Jackson movie, and how well did the portrayal of Count Half-Blood match your inner vision?
0. And honestly, I didn't see the movie.
Really?
Yeah, so I can't
Yeah, well, we found that it was very different. It was very different than our images and our minds, which I think is common.
Well, it was interesting. Michael and I were just talking about this before the panel, and we were saying he made a very good point. He said, you know, the movie has to be the movie, and the book has to be the book, and you just have to let them be separate things because they're not going to be the same.
My name's Rebecca, and my curiosity is, well, honestly, are you going to go into Norse mythology? Those three, Egyptian, Greek, and Norse, were my childhood, so I'm curious to see if you can make
I love Norse mythology, and you're right, it probably is the third in the triumvirate of the great mythologies that I at least grew up with. I mean, I love mythology from all over the world, but it's the other one that I'm most familiar with. But, you know, rest easy. If I get there, it's going to be a long time. I have 3 books in the King Chronicles to write and 5 in the Heroes of Olympus. And so it's going to be a while if I ever get to the Norse.
Hi, I'm Diana. I was wondering, in the Percy Jackson series, during the editing process, were there any scenes or interchanges that you wished you had kept in the series that you ended up cutting out?
It's a great question. There were some scenes that I cut, but I think on the whole, they were the right choice to cut them. There are a few scenes that, just for pacing, just to keep things moving, it was probably a good idea that we trimmed them a little bit. You know, I don't ever want the story to get too draggy, too slow. And the reason for that is I always read the manuscript first to my sons, and they, like me at that age, they're reluctant readers. So if I begin to lose them, if I see their attention wandering, that scene has to be edited. Or if I write a joke that's not funny to them, that's cut. So they let me know right away.
Hi, my name's Lori. I have a question for you. Are either of you planning to be at the LA Times Festival of Books next year in UCLA?
Writers usually don't know what they're doing that far in advance.
But it's an audience of 100,000 who are just there for the books.
And it's a wonderful audience. But again, writers are often pulled hither and yon by their publishers, by publishing schedules. And sometimes we don't know until, I mean, did you know you were coming here today?
Well, I mean, I knew today. Yeah. A month ago, no.
No, I mean, so the answer is we don't know. But the answer is we would love to. I mean, I was there last year as just wandering around, astonished and amazed, and it is an astonishing.
Yeah, I went a couple of years ago, and it's a wonderful festival. But yeah, who knows? I just have no idea. But it's a wonderful event.
Start an email campaign to your publishers.
I'm actually going to ask Michael a question then. Norse mythology. I'm kind of, happy but sad because I love Marvel's lore, but every time I see it, I'm like, am I ever going to see the Norse gods done the way I remember them as?
It's a really good question. Unfortunately, we are of a generation, a lot of people in the audience will be of a generation who've grown up with Marvel's thought. That's all they know. I've introduced, certainly I'm using 4 in the Flanell series, not quite a pure representation of Thor, but my version. Ultimately, I would love to do gods of Asgard, because it is, the links to Celtic mythology are very strong, which is my speciality. I would love to do it, but like Rick, it's not going to be for a couple of years. But if I can get in there before he gets in there.
I'd love to see both.
If you could pick a mythology world to live in, and you can choose like other mythologies that you haven't read about, like Norse, which would you pick?
I also been blessed, the list would be pretty cool. But I don't necessarily want to live 3 virtuous lives and die to get there. And Mount Olympus would be nice. It's prime real estate in Manhattan for one thing.
Oh, it's got to be Celtic mythology. We're being drummed out of my Irish roots. Celtic mythology, Tiernan Old, the land of the Everyone.
I have a question about, in the Red Pyramid, they mentioned some other gods in New York. Were you hinting about the god in
Maybe.
That's a yes.
Absolutely. I just threw that in there for fun. You're totally right.
Hi, I just finished the Red Pyramid like last week. I read it all in like 10 hours, and it was fabulous. And I'm sure I'm one of the many girls my age that want to date with me this. My question is, I'm actually a writing student, and one of the things that we all have to learn, I'm still learning, is we have to really find our individual voice as a writer. And we've all had difficulties doing that, but at the same time, writing different stories, you have to find the dynamic voice of your character, especially being in first person. So I was wondering the process that you went through, already knowing your voice as a writer, but now you're writing Percy Jackson novels and then the Red Pyramid in 2 different points of view. What was your process of creating those voices?
It's a great question. The Red Pyramid is something I'd never tried to do before. It's told from alternating first-person points of view. I did that because I knew I wanted a brother and sister, and I wanted to sort of challenge myself. And I liked first person. I wanted to see what it was like, having them squabble and bicker back and forth about what was going on. My worry with that was writing from Sadie's point of view, Sadie being a 12-year-old British girl, which is something that I had never been. But I don't think I would have been able to pull that off, say, 10 years ago. But since then, I have spent a lot of time in the UK, a lot of time, especially in English schools. And so I felt like I had a better sense of what it was like to be a British girl. And it was also based partly on my mom. My mother was an American girl who was raised in London after World War II and didn't come back to the States until she was in high school. And when she came back home, she had a British accent. She didn't fit in at all. And that's sort of Sadie's place. That's where she is. She's an American girl who feels very British. So that was sort of my touchstone for Sadie's character. And the funny thing was, even though Sadie's not like me at all, she's by far and away my favorite character in the Red Pyramid. She just took over the story. She's such a pistol. So you never know where these things come from. But you experiment, you don't be afraid to try new things, and voices will come here. Well, that's sort of psychotic, isn't it?